emergency. It really is. It's very, very hurtful. It's hard to go through. So, without further ado, I guess I will continue with the story. So, if you saw the first part, you know that we're at this question: what do we do? And I did go and see a therapist. So I'm going to go and do this. You read through Amanda's email 2 or 3 times, then sit and stare at your computer for a while. While the memory of that uncomfortable conversation makes you feel nearly embarrassed and self-conscious, part of you is also encouraged by the fact that she cared enough to get back to you at all. Sitting in front of your computer, you start to question things like whether or not Amanda sent you this number out of pity, or perhaps some sense of obligation after having listened to you. You question her motives, the validity of her concern, and whether or not you think seeing a therapist would even be helpful. Yet, almost unconsciously, you reach your phone, and before you realize what's happening, you're listening to the therapist's line ring. Before you can bring yourself to hang up, you're listening to the slightly clinical but not unpleasant voice of the receptionist ask how she can help you. Sorry. I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor. You manage to stammer out. The conversation is quick and not nearly as unpleasant as you were fearing. Quicker than you can say forward and slip, you've scheduled an appointment. Quicker than you realize appointment day rolls around. What do you do? Unfortunately, some people do not. They don't go through with it. They either stay home and just say screw this, is not a good idea, or they do. They sit in their car and either psych themselves out or psych themselves up. Going into it, which actually isn't a good idea. You don't want to talk yourself out of it for sure, but you also don't want to psych yourself up going in. You don't want to make yourself not be you. The therapist is going to be like listening to your words, and from there they figure out exactly how psychologically you're doing. They do it to try to understand you more, so that they know exactly how to help you. And it's important that you just be you. You can't just be you. You can't be weird about it. So we're gonna go in. I wasn't sure of what to expect either, personally, but it turned eventually out to be a very, very good thing. You have your first session with your new therapist, Dr. Susan Melville, a tall woman in her mid-40s with a disarming demeanor and patient eyes with the start of the slightest smile lines. She makes you feel comfortable fairly easily, which is a pleasant surprise after all your anxiety over the appointment. As you leave, you make a second appointment. You're still skeptical about all this, but figure you might as well see where this is going. The hardest part, it seems, was taking the first step. You're still not sure if and how you're going to tell your family or your partner, but you figure you'll deal with that when the time comes. Either way, you feel relieved that you managed to see this through instead of being paralyzed with worry over it. Even if nothing comes of it, you did something you said you would, instead of flaking out or running away. You're emotionally exhausted when you get home and collapse into bed. You sleep better that night than you have in a week, and you're not sure if it is because you were tired when you got home or if it's because of the therapist. So now we are just very depressed, and we've spent some time on the therapist couch. You're having difficulty finding the motivation to continue going to your sessions. It's an early Wednesday morning. Lately, you've developed a nasty habit of waking up 10 to 20 minutes before your alarm rings. Unfortunately, today is no exception. You lay in bed, each minute ticking closer and closer to wake-up time, and passing on a swelling wave of ever-encroaching dread. Sooner than you would like, your alarm blares with caustic inevitability. You frantically pound the snooze button and then retreat under your blankets as if the warmth of your comforter can shield you from the passage of time. You almost always have difficulty rising from bed, but today that simple task seems nothing short of Herculean. After several snooze cycles, you decide that you just can't deal with work today. You're incapable of even rousing yourself from bed, let alone going into work and trying to force yourself through a workday. Not to mention you've snoozed so many times that it would be impossible to make it on time now anyway. What do you do? So when I went through depression, I didn't have a job, so I really wasn't capable of, making these sort of choices. I did have school though, and I went to school every day. I never let the depression get ahead of me. But even now, like heat, or just spewing my guts, like, like right before I have to leave, like, I won't call it, I will always be there if that's what's needed of me. So I'm gonna head into work. In spite of the fact that your body is actively fighting you, literally every step of the way, you somehow manage to drag yourself out of bed and make your way into work. Surprisingly, you end up only being about 5 minutes late, and nobody seems so much to care. But when you woke up, the simplest act of being even physically present at your job seemed like an impossibility. You were surprised at your own ability to push through the day. While you were far from enjoying or indeed really coping with the dullness of your job today, you seemed to have slipped into a trance-like state of automation, and time is nevertheless passing. Eventually, the end of the day rolls around, and you head home utterly exhausted, but at the same time, almost proud of yourself for having stuck it out. You are now only depressed. You are seeing a therapist, even though you doubt anything she says could make you feel better. It's 2 a.m. on a Sunday, and you have work in the morning. You roll over to see the sickly green glow of the time displayed on your LED alarm clock and let out an exacerbated sigh. You've been trying to fall asleep for over 3 hours now, to no avail. Every time your head hits the pillow, you're overcome with anxious thoughts that wrap themselves around each other. Worried about your job leads to worry about your future, leads to worries about your very identity. You're unable to shake them off long enough to doze off. Your eyes won't even stay shut as your mind races through imagined scenarios going horribly wrong, which you promptly attribute to your general worthlessness. Your thoughts run too fast for you to come to a satisfying conclusion on any one of them. Your room is completely silent, but the silence has given way to a loud static noise rattling around inside your head. Your heart beats slightly, and you worry it's beating a little too fast. You worry that if you focus too strongly on your racing heart, you'll freak yourself out hard enough, and you have a heart attack. You may have to be awake for work in a mere 8 hours, and you know that your work is so much worse only if you are asleep. What do you do? Unfortunately, I can't choose any of the other options. I don't know why exactly, because I'm only depressed. I'm not, severely depressed. So I guess I'll go to my computer. You get out of bed and head to your desk. Laying in bed with nothing but your thoughts to keep you company makes you feel like you're going insane. The harshness of the light coming from the screen makes you squint as you turn on. Despite how often you find yourself in this exact situation, there have been so many nights lately just like this. As you begin reading a news story, an online friend of yours IMs me. His name is Eddick. I'm you. It's gonna be articulating here. You're up late again, I see. Yeah, I can't sleep again. Thinking too much. Thinking. You guessed it. Want to talk about it? You end up talking with Eddick for quite some time about how you feel like he's always been easy to talk about personal matters, and the security of talking online helps. Being able to rethink what you say as you type it out and check it before you send it helps you gather your thoughts, and you find it less intimidating in a way to type it all into a prompt than say it aloud. I don't want to be the guy who thinks they can diagnose something because I read a Wikipedia article, but it sounds like you might have depression. You should talk to someone about that, like a doctor. You pause. Are you really that transparent, or is it that you've gotten used to talking about your feelings at this point? Your insomnia makes you a little paranoid, but you shake it off. We can do some research and see if there's a good doctor near you. It's not like you're going back to sleep anytime soon. Might as well do something while you're awake. I could, say that it's okay, but okay. So I've gone down into very depressed again. Okay, I think it's because I'm doing this. But in truth, I am talking to somebody. Oh, okay. I'm glad you've taken that step. I've heard it's not an easy one. I know people kind of suck at understanding this sort of stuff sometimes, but there's nothing wrong with having depression. You wouldn't be ashamed if you have bronchitis or something. So there's no reason to be ashamed if it's your brain that's sick instead. You spend a few more minutes talking with Eddick about your therapy and your feelings about it. He's incredibly supportive, and you're happy to find that you have a confidant that understands your illness and is willing to lend an ear when you're having nights like this. A little while later, you fall back into your bed, kid in tow, and find it easier to drift off to sleep. Even in therapy, there's still going to be nights like these sometimes. It's good to know you have a friend who will help carry you through them, and that's the best thing you can have, is somebody who will be there beside you. like someone bumping into you really hard as they walk by. By the time you get home, you're exhausted, and remember that these feelings were ones you identified as a negative feedback loop with your therapist. These pent-up feelings aren't dying down and are eating at you. You open your front door and stare at your apartment. An overwhelming feeling of exhaustion overcomes you, and you feel like your energy levels are low enough that you'd likely sit on to a single activity tonight. So what do you do? I did distract myself a lot, but at the same time, one thing I wished for was to have people to talk to, and I'd kind of do that with, my brother's friends. Like, I'd talk to them about it if they were around, because some of them, did understand fully what I was going through. So I talked to my mom about it. I talked to my therapist about it. I talked to people I could trust. So I'm gonna reach out. Your head feels too noisy and you need to trade it for some actual conversation. Your therapist did say that it was important to reach out to your support network, so you might as well give it a shot. Who do you call? Yeah, no, don't call your coworkers. That's a bad idea. Mother's not exactly the best person to talk to. Knowing my brother, he's not a good person to talk to. I mean, I guess the one person you can talk to is your girlfriend, because they'll be beside you no matter what. You dial Alex, who picks up after only two rings. You ask if she has time to talk, and she tells you she's just hanging around her PJs and actually somewhat bored for once due to being caught up on her coursework. You try to figure out where to start with how you're feeling and are overcome with missing her face. You ask if she feels like grabbing some dinner, and you notice she barely contains surprise and delight on the other end of the line. You meet about half an hour later at an inexpensive diner not far from your apartment. While the food is not great, you're surprised by how much your mood seems so elevated just being in her company. While at first you were extremely hesitant to talk about your job situation for fear of being burdensome or sounding like a whiner, you see her listening intently to you with what even to you seems to be genuine concern. After winding down with a beer, you cautiously open up a little bit more about your feelings surrounding your job and how drained it leaves you feeling. You feel like you're simply existing, selling days of your life for no real purpose. You surprise even yourself when you start talking about how frustrated and stymied you feel about your job, about how you feel passionately about things. You feel like all your energy and capacity for creativity is getting leached out of you each and every workday. You can't remember how long it's been since you externalized this much raw emotion. The two of you spend several hours in that diner booth, long after your half-eaten food was cleared and the waitress stopped refilling your coffee cups. As you get up to leave, a sudden wave of self-consciousness washes over you, and you suddenly feel incredibly awkward. Then Alex stands up and grabs you tightly around your waist. You realize that, short of boring her with your seemingly endless rants, she's simply happy to have gotten a chance to spend real time with you. It's been, by all accounts, incredibly too long since you've allowed yourself to open up to them like this, and there's an almost palpable sense of closeness you allow yourself to hold on to as you go to bed that night. Personally depressed. It's an utterly nondescript Wednesday afternoon. Nothing, not dry, not wet, nothing. The type of afternoon that would completely fade from memory unless one made an active effort to preserve it. As has become routine on Wednesdays, you were sitting on the couch of Dr. Melville's office. To your mild surprise, she begins the session by breaking her characteristic therapist silence and begins speaking up right away. I want to start by saying I think it's great that you decided to come see me. It's an incredibly important first step, she begins. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about the possibility of supplementing or substituting your treatment with medication. The mention of medication makes your ears perk up and you feel your heart rate increasing. She continues, many people find adding a pharmaceutical element to their treatment to be very helpful, and some even prefer to take drugs, completely eliminating their need to visit use a therapist at all, providing you rely on your support network and are still reaching out to people. I would prefer if we kept talking. Should you choose to start medications so that I can monitor your progress and adjust as needed? But the choice is ultimately yours. I just want to run an option by you to gauge what your thoughts on the matter might be. So when I went to see a therapist, I forget how long I went to see them before I started taking my medication. It might have just been a few weeks or something. I started on just a low amount, and it went up a little bit after a little while. But then it never really increased after that. But I did constantly still see a therapist. I think it was like maybe twice a week. I can't quite remember. It was at least once a week. So I accepted prescription as a way to augment your therapy. Tell her you like to try drugs instead of therapy. These weekly sessions have made you more than a little uncomfortable. I found them to be more alleviating, really. Like, I could get everything off my back, you know? This is the final straw. You're done with both. I'll augment it with that. You think the matter over long and hard. It's strange to think that recently none of this sort of thing was even on your radar. Here you are now being asked to make a decision about it. You're both skeptical and nervous, still getting over the initial shock of even just talking to a therapist. Still, over the years, you've done enough entry-level reading on the subject to know that if it doesn't help, at least it probably won't hurt, right? After an intense and protracted period of internal vacillation, you decide to bite the bullet and go for it. You tell Marvel that you'd like to try medication in addition to your therapy, and you spend about half an hour going over what you'll be taking and what you should expect from it. Thinking back on the decision later, you're pretty sure you had your fist tightly clenched the whole way through. We're still just depressed. Same thing there. We have started taking medication. You're hoping that it will work, but you aren't optimistic and are worried about the side effects. It's a Wednesday evening, and you're visiting at your parents' house for a holiday. It's one of the handful of times during the year you drive out to visit your old hometown, and you've seen random people you had gone to school with around town. Whenever bumping into them, the usual short versions of what you've done since graduating are exchanged. You've gone through a few of these today, and have been very aware of how much you feel you haven't accomplished. While you were in high school, you had much larger plans, and you feel like you failed to manifest most of them. Even if you had managed to, you've largely lost interest in what you thought you wanted to do growing up. Now you're not really sure what you wanted to do, and you felt like you're lacking the ambition to drive to figure it out. Everyone you've caught up with seems so much happier than you, like they've gotten all their lives all figured out. You've kind of been feeling like a failure by comparison. Very few people actually get their lives fully together. You know, they fake it, you know. A lot of people, when they say their lives are great, they've got more issues than you know. Your brother Malcolm arrives with his wife in tow shortly before you all sit down to dinner. He's been traveling for his job lately, and you haven't seen him since the day he picked you up from the dentist. Your parents haven't seen him since before then. During dinner, they all catch up, and Malcolm talks about the amazing things he's done on the road. Your mother turns to you and asks what you've been doing, or what you've been up to since then. Oh, same old, you say. Nothing really new going on. Your mother makes a face. Oh, nothing new. How long are you planning on staying at that job of yours? What do you tell them? What do you say? Tell them what they want you. You're actively looking for a more prestigious position. Admit that you don't know what you want to do. Excuse yourself to the bathroom. See, this is another thing. Like, when I had depression, I didn't have a job, so I never had to deal with this question. But at the same time, now in my life, I'm going to school and I have a job. satisfied with her husband's reasoning. I don't think it's normal for someone at that age to not have a path. You need to think hard about it, or you'll never make anything of yourself. You, Mom, come on, Malcolm interjects. This emotionally exhausts you. You want to tell her that you were thinking hard, and that not knowing what you're doing with yourself bothers you more than you could ever bother her. Sometimes it feels like you're lost in the woods, and that if you were to drop dead in your apartment, the world wouldn't notice. You want to make sure that more often than not, you feel like an alien, like there isn't anything in this world that feels like a place where you belong, and you have no idea how to fix it or what to do. You wish you could find the words, so she would understand that being looked down on for this kills you and drives home the feeling of being a total outsider. Instead, you get very quiet for the rest of the meal, where your mind goes numb. Everything inside you feels exhausted. It's a rainy night. You are hurrying through the rain to Alex's apartment at her behest. Though your pace is quick, the rain is steadily soaking up your pant legs as you traverse the town. It is darkening your already poor mood. This call came while you were at home after a day of dealing with abnormally frustrating people. You spent the afternoon trying to unwind and get some progress on your project done. Alex called and interrupted one of your try to make progress and get frustrated at not making progress, have a harder time making progress due to frustration, repeat loops. You haven't fully shaken off the feeling of being annoyed with yourself from it just yet. You knock on the door, and on the third knock, hear her voice call from further in the apartment to come on in. You cross the threshold, dripping rainwater all the way. You notice the lights are turned down very low in the apartment. You squint to navigate it as you clutch onto your damp umbrella, but end up hitting your shin on a side table, mumbling a profanity under your breath. Jesus Christ, this has been a bad day for him, I think. You barely make out Alex emerging from the hallway, clad in what looks to be a robe with the bare skin of her legs appearing underneath. Why don't you come in and warm up? She asked in her designated, slightly cheesy, sexy voice. After a beat of silence, she says more naturally, my roommates are out of town this weekend, so I thought it might be nice to have a little fun while they're away. You appreciate affection, but you're too wrapped up in your own negative feedback loops to be in a mood right now. I mean, trying to unwind is probably the best way, just get it off your chest, What is that? Oh, I think it's stairs, probably. Sorry. You look at her understanding, barely lit, and notice there are a few candles scattered around the apartment. It occurs to you that she has tried to make this night special for the two of you, even though you have a tight knot of antisocial frustration in your stomach. Seeing how much she cares makes you want to try to melt it away, so you can show her how much you care that she has gone through all this trouble. However, you desperately need to shift gears first before that's even possible. You look amazing. Let's have a drink together, you suggest, hoping that this will give you the push you need to get into the mood. You go into the kitchen and pour the two of you drinks, trying to focus on letting go of your bad mood. You sit down on the couch next to her, and she calls up to you instantly. What should we toast to? She asks as she takes her drink. You think for a moment, passing up the cheesy toast option. You say what's on your mind, letting go of your bad day. To tonight. The two of you cheers, and you ask her about her day. Conversation turns flirtatious, and the two of you find yourself in bed shortly after. Jesus Christ. You find that you're having trouble getting into things physically with her, and remember that diminished arousal was a possible side effect of your medication. That you're part of the population that wouldn't be affected by it, but it seems that as though this was not the case. However, you're still able to enjoy the closeness with Alex and fall asleep together happily. It's an early winter evening, and even though it's not particularly late, the time of year has lent the sky an almost prematurely darkened cast. Day after day, just like today, you trudge home from your job. From a job you have increasingly come to hate. On this day, your job misery seems to have reached critical mass, and not even shedding your rain-laden and uncomfortable work clothes helps you unwind from your workday. You collapse into your couch, blank and numb, while your job always seemed to be an unpleasant reality of existence. It was a position you sort of fell into unexpectedly, never intending to work there long term, and it's getting harder and harder to keep up. Well, it's certainly not your dream job. You've always just sort of stuck it out. Well, you just sort of stuck it out of necessity before, but it's become increasingly difficult to do that. Though else you could do. You find yourself face to face with a question you just had to ignore. Is your complacency worth the price of this level of misery? What do you do? What do we do? I mean, my mind's saying try and at least be productive by focusing your efforts on your project. That's what it's saying. Aimlessly looking through classifieds just sounds like going from one shitty job to another, and you don't want your mind to go blank. Seriously, it's not a good idea. Try to be productive. You sit down at your computer to blow off some steam, but are surprised to find your thoughts drifting to your long neglected project. You talk yourself into opening it up and taking a look at it for the first time in what must be weeks. For whatever reason, your anger that you've been feeling towards your day job seems to have been converted to pure passion, as though you seem to have been, as you seem to be overflowing with ideas tonight. It's as though you've built up ideas that just haven't gotten out and aggregate. So while you don't get an unnatural amount of work done, you do work for a solid couple of hours a day. It really feels great. What's more, you share some stuff across your social media networks and you receive quite a bit of positive feedback, which makes you feel great. When you go to bed that night, you tell yourself that your job may suck, but at least you've got something you really care about that you can put effort into and really feel good about yourself. In fact, as you're falling asleep, you can barely even remember your workday. You're now only moderately depressed. You find it hard to focus on anything because you get physically and mentally exhausted very quickly. And you're in therapy with a good counselor. You're doing cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, and they are starting to help. Your medication is helping to keep the edge off and keep some of the darker, more negative feedback loops from being as prevalent. In other words, we're doing great. This is how a story is supposed to go. Of course, I'm thinking that's probably going to turn bad very quickly just due to me saying that. It's a little past 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. You're at your computer, frustration levels peaked, rubbing your eyes and sighing heavily. You're working on a project from your job as you stretch to wit's end, trying to meet a looming deadline. As it lurks closer and closer, you are seriously doubting your ability to get it done. You've dragged your feet a little at work due to your complete lack of energy lately. In spite of wanting to do a good job, you find yourself unable to push past it and feel horribly useless for it. Sorry. You slide your hands off your face to look at your screen as it beeps at you. Hey, are you there? I really need to talk about something. You feel like you're getting nowhere with your current task and could possibly use a break. However, you know that you have a history of getting distracted and losing motivation to pick something back up afterwards. What do you do? Well, you can't multitask. That's actually really hard to do. Screw it. You hate your job anyway, and he seems like he really needs help. Yeah, sounds like he needs help. You're feeling like you really hit a brick wall with your test, so why not take a break and help out a friend? Hey, what's up? Oh, good, you're there. I just found out I got cheated on. I don't know what to do. Oh no, that's horrible. I say that with such enthusiasm, right? The two of you talk for a long time, and you lend a shoulder to your friend. You give him space to rant, to cry, and most importantly, to be able to voice his inner turmoil. You give him your full attention and talk him through what his options are for what he does next. You keep him from doing something rash, and the two of you decide it's best for him to sleep on it before doing anything. Exhausted, he departs from bed and thanks you for being there with him. You close your eye and window. You feel horribly sorry for your friend, but happy that you were able to help. It serves as a tangible reminder that you're capable of being useful to someone instead of solely being a mess that needs everyone else's help. You bid up your project work and find that you're suddenly able to get some solid progress done that night. I'm sorry, you can't see this right now, but I'm smiling because of the fact that it makes me feel good, knowing that I can help somebody, physically, like in real life, and in this game. It makes me feel good that I can help somebody, that I'm not just useless, It's a Sunday afternoon. You're in deep thought on the way home from therapy. However, you notice this time that you're not in the same negative feedback loops you usually get trapped in when being this introspective. You realize that although you still have your bad days, your lows aren't quite as low as you used to be. Your antidepressants bottle rolls around your dashboard as you take a left turn. You've been on this medication for quite a while now after a period of trying a few different kinds. Though you still have meds these days. Maybe it's time to start taking these, you think? I seem to not really need them anymore. What do you think? Personally, I have to choose to go off the meds one because of the fact that it was this exact same sort of conversation, you know? I don't really seem to need these anymore. I seem to be a happier person overall, and I hope that the story doesn't go bad because of this choice, but because of how it went for me, I went off it. Despite it becoming a part of your routine, the next day you stop yourself from taking the tiny pill in the morning as per usual. The side effects have been an annoyance, and you are pretty convinced that you no longer need them. The rest of the day goes by as normal, and you believe that you've made the right choice. However, as time goes on, the familiar pit of despair in the back of your mind reopens and reaches out to pull you back in. You feel the familiar self-hatred and anxiety wrap itself around your brain, choking it. All this feels much worse than the side effects of the medications you resume taking it and desperately wait for the readjustment period to be over. You'll not make this mistake again. Dr. Melville tells you that this is a common thing for depression sufferers to experience. They feel better, so they discard the medication, believing that they're cured. However, it was just a sign that the medication was doing its job. She reminds you that depression is a chronic mental illness that needs proper treatment, and she asks you to consult her before augmenting your medication schedule in the future. So, yeah, I mean, I might have jumped the gun just a little bit there. Just a little bit. Like, literally just a little bit. It's probably gonna happen again, you know, that question. And maybe my character might not have that choice available because of it. So let's just see what happens. Oh, and I'm sorry. So we're gonna pick this up next episode. Hopefully I don't have too much left. I do plan to do this story. I do plan to play this again after I get done with this. But unfortunately, it's going to probably be the darkest side of this game that I can probably pull. Just saying. It's strictly out of curiosity. So, anyway, I'm sorry that I'm putting this video out and saying at the end, I hope you enjoy your day, but again, I hope it sincerely, how this story has been going, I hope that it makes you feel